I gave my SGL a key to our family's vacation home out of kindness. She began invading without notice, then ordered me to cancel my annual family gathering because she wanted the house alone. All right, gather around, because I have a story for you that's going to make your jaw drop. Imagine pouring your heart and soul into a cherished family legacy, only for someone to treat it like their personal frat house, then demand you change your plans. My sister-in-law thought she could walk all over me, but she learned the hard way that even family has boundaries, and sometimes those boundaries come with flashing blue lights. So, this whole saga revolves around my family's vacation home. It's not just any house. It's a living piece of our history, passed down through generations. My grandmother adored it, filling it with laughter and love. Then it went to my incredible mom, who kept it as our special family escape. 3 years ago, I lost my mom to cancer, and as an only child, the house, this beautiful, sacred place, became mine. It was a huge responsibility, but also an immense privilege, and keeping its legacy alive means everything to me. My husband, Richard, and I have made so many new memories there with our daughter. We've poured love, time, and money into it, updating parts while meticulously preserving its original charm. Every time we go, it's like stepping back into a simpler, more peaceful world. It truly is a hidden gem, tucked away in the quiet countryside, with a huge yard and a stunning pool. A few years ago, we brought Richard's sister along for a visit. She'd never seen it before, and honestly, she fell head over heels. She couldn't stop talking about how lucky I was to have inherited something so precious, a place steeped in family memories. And I understood why she felt that way. You see, Richard and his sister had an incredibly rough childhood. Their parents were deep in drug addiction, in and out of jail, and they ended up in foster care. No stability, no real home, just constant upheaval. It breaks your heart to even think about it. Richard, being the amazing man he is, worked his tail off to create a better life. The moment he had a stable job, he adopted his younger sister. He became her protector, her provider, basically her parent. Their bond is unbreakable, forged in hardship, and they always have each other's backs. When I first met Richard, he was very open about his past, and I saw firsthand how intense that bond with his sister was. She was essentially his child, and because of that, she wasn't exactly thrilled about me entering the picture. She was incredibly protective, and honestly, pretty unwelcoming at first. She'd often just ignore me, not even bothering to use my name. It was tough, and yeah, she could be mean, almost like she was testing me. But I try not to take it personally. I knew she relied on Richard so much, and a new person shaking up their dynamic must have been terrifying for her. Slowly, though, things shifted. She saw how much Richard loved me, how happy I made him, and that we were serious. Over time, she warmed up, and the three of us became incredibly close. With no other close family on their side, and me being an only child, it truly felt like it was just us three against the world. Then, she mentioned it to me. Her sadness about never having received any kind of family inheritance. No heirlooms, no childhood home, nothing passed down from her biological family. It really stuck with me, and my heart just ached for her. After a lot of thought, I decided to do something truly meaningful. I gave her a key to my family's vacation home. I told her she was family, and she could visit whenever she wanted, as long as she gave me a heads up so our schedules wouldn't clash. She was absolutely overjoyed, practically bursting with excitement, and promised she'd always check in. At first, she was good about it. She'd call, just like we agreed. But last year, things started to change. The first time, I got a notification from my security camera. There she was, at the house, completely unannounced. I called her, and she profusely apologized, swore she'd just forgotten, and promised it wouldn't happen again. I believed her. I let it slide. But then, it happened again, and this time, it was worse. She brought a man with her, someone neither Richard nor I had ever seen before. Again, no heads up. I was beyond frustrated. I called her, reminding her of our simple rule. It wasn't about controlling her, it was about avoiding clashes. Richard and I were planning to go that very weekend. But she just brushed it off, casually saying she was too excited to spend time with her man and hadn't planned ahead. It was pretty clear she'd taken him there for a romantic getaway. I was irritated, but I swallowed it, not wanting to make a big deal. But it left a bitter taste. I'd given her that key out of love and trust. and she was clearly taking advantage. But nothing could have prepared me for what we walked into the following weekend. The moment Richard and I stepped inside, my stomach dropped. The house, my cherished house, was in utter disarray. The floors were sticky, like drinks had been spilled everywhere and left to dry. The trash bins were overflowing with empty alcohol bottles. A full-blown party, it seemed. And the bedroom. Oh, the bedroom. It was a complete disaster. The sheets were ripped off, everything was a mess, and it reeked of carelessness. My blood absolutely boiled. It wasn't just the mess, it was the sheer disrespect. She had knowingly left it like that, fully aware that I would be the one to find it, the one who would have to deal with it. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. She had taken my kindness for granted. I called her, barely holding back my rage. "Who?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. "Did you think was going to clean this up?" I had come for a peaceful weekend, not a cleaning frenzy. Her response? She forgot to clean. And then, the audacity. "Since we're family, I didn't think you'd be so offended by how dirty everything was." That was the last straw. I told her, in no uncertain terms, that this behavior was unacceptable. If she ever planned to visit again, she had to inform me, or she was no longer welcome. My voice was firm, and for the first time, I didn't sugarcoat my frustration. Richard and I spent the next few hours scrubbing floors, hauling trash, and restoring order. All that exhaustion, all that anger, started to change how I saw her. She wasn't just making mistakes, she was deliberately taking advantage. And then, just this weekend, things came to a head in the most unbelievable way. This weekend is incredibly special for my family. It's our annual gathering to honor my mom, a tradition we've kept alive since she passed. My dad, my grandfather, my cousins, we all come together, and this year, I was beyond excited to host it at the vacation home. Richard and I had planned everything perfectly. But yesterday, just one day before everyone was set to arrive, my phone buzzed. A security notification. My heart plummeted. I knew. I checked the camera feed, and my worst fear was confirmed. My sister-in-law was there again. And, of course, she hadn't bothered to ask. This time, she even brought 2 of her girlfriends. Normally, I'd just call her, scold her, and reluctantly let it slide. But not this time. This wasn't just some random weekend. This was my mom's memorial. My family, my traditions, my plans. And once again, she had just barged into my space without permission. I didn't hesitate. I called her instantly, demanding to know why she was there. Her excuse? She'd just come out of a 1-month relationship and needed time to process her trauma, as if that justified barging into my family home the day before a major event. She actually said she'd planned to inform me after she and her friends had already settled in. Because, she assumed it wouldn't be a problem. At that exact moment, something inside me just snapped. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't an innocent mistake. This was pure, unadulterated entitlement. She knew she was supposed to ask. She knew this house was mine. And yet, she had deliberately ignored all of that, convinced that whatever she wanted to do took priority over my plans, my boundaries, and my generosity. I calmly, firmly, told her that Richard and I would be arriving tomorrow. I explained this was our annual family gathering, honoring my mom, and that we'd been planning it for weeks. I even tried to be accommodating, offering for her and her friends to join our gathering. I didn't want to just kick her out. But the moment I suggested it, her entire demeanor shifted. She flat out refused, making it clear she had zero interest in being part of our event. Instead of acknowledging her massive overstep, she doubled down, arguing I wasn't being fair. According to her, she needed this weekend to unwind, and my family being there would ruin her time. Then, with a level of audacity I've never witnessed, she actually suggested I should change my plans. She insisted I either move the date of my family gathering or find a different location so she and her friends wouldn't be disturbed. I was stunned, absolutely floored. Here she was, in a house she did not own, a house she was only allowed in because of my generosity, telling me, the actual owner, to rearrange my entire family's plans because she decided last minute she wanted a private getaway. Any lingering patience I had for her completely evaporated. This was blatant disrespect, and I had officially reached my breaking point. I told her, plain and simple, I am not asking my family to rearrange their schedules just because you showed up unannounced. If you want an uninterrupted getaway with your friends, You need to find your own accommodations, and fast. Because Richard and I are arriving tomorrow, no matter what. That's when she completely lost it. She started arguing furiously, her voice dripping with frustration and self-pity. She accused me of being inconsiderate, acting like I was the one imposing on her plans. She dramatically claimed I was ruining her plans and that she needed this weekend for her mental health. At that point, I had heard enough. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. Yes, I understood she'd been through a lot. Yes, I knew she was hurting over her breakup, even if it was just a 1-month relationship. But none of that gave her the right to demand I change my plans, or to act like my generosity was something she was entitled to. She was acting like she owned the place, and I was officially done playing nice. Update 1 asterisk. After putting out my initial story, I got a lot of feedback. Some of it was harsh, but reading through everyone's advice gave me the confidence I needed to finally set the boundary I should have enforced ages ago. For those asking, yes, my sister-in-law has always had a bit of an entitlement problem. I've just always let it slide for Richard's sake. For example, when Richard and I got married, she threw a mini tantrum because she wasn't my maid of honor. She made a huge deal about deserving a special role because she was his only family. When I gently told her I'd already chosen someone, she sulked and gave me the cold shoulder for weeks. And there were countless times she'd invite herself over for dinner without notice, then complain about what I cooked. One time, she even joked that since she never had a real mom, I should take on that role and cook for her more often. So yeah, the entitlement was always there. But despite her selfish tendencies, I kept making excuses for her. I felt bad about her upbringing. I wanted her to feel like she finally had a family. But family isn't just about giving. It's also about respect. And the hard truth is, she wasn't respecting me, my home, or my generosity. For anyone else struggling with setting boundaries, let this be a reminder. Being kind does not mean being a doormat. You can love someone and still say no to them. You can want the best for them and still refuse to let them take advantage of you. As for my sister-in-law, I hadn't decided what to do next yet, but I knew one thing for sure. This was the absolute last time she would ever walk all over me. Update 2 asterisk. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more ridiculous, Richard called me from work. Apparently, my sister-in-law had taken her complaints straight to him, whining like a toddler about how I was evicting a struggling family member and being insensitive to her mental health struggles. I could practically hear the frustration in Richard's voice. He wasn't buying into her dramatics either. In fact, he was just as upset as I was. He agreed that she had no business showing up unannounced and that her behavior was completely out of line. To try and diffuse the situation, he even went out of his way to be generous. He offered to pay for a hotel room at the nearest nice place so she and her girlfriends could have the weekend getaway she was so desperate for. It was a completely reasonable solution. She would still get her alone time, and we could still host our family gathering as planned. But of course, that wasn't good enough for her. She insisted on staying. She didn't want a hotel. She wanted my house, and she wanted it on her terms. At this point, I wasn't even surprised anymore. I was just ready to retaliate. She wasn't a victim here. She was knowingly being entitled, manipulative, and completely disrespectful. Update 3 asterisk. At this point, I had enough. My sister-in-law wanted to act entitled. She wanted to act like my own house wasn't mine to control. Fine. I decided to take the petty route, a path I usually avoid, but she left me no choice. I called the police on her. I calmly informed them that someone had broken into my property. Because that's exactly what it was, trespassing. My sister-in-law had no right to be there. And since she refused to leave, even when Richard offered to pay for a hotel, I had no reason to keep playing nice. After the phone call, it didn't take long for the police to show up at the vacation house. And as expected, the moment they arrived, I got a furious call from her. She was screaming at me, demanding that I tell the officers she had permission to be there. But I didn't do it. I reminded her, very calmly, that she did not have my permission. I told her she had repeatedly ignored my boundaries, that she had been warned before, and that this was entirely her own fault. She tried to argue, tried to play the victim, but none of it mattered. The police didn't take long to make their decision. She and her friends were arrested for trespassing. And you know what? I don't feel bad at all. Not one bit. Because at the end of the day, I gave her every chance to respect my space. But she took my generosity for granted and treated my family's home like her personal property. Well, Now she knows that I'm not playing around. My husband had no idea about what I had done until he got a frantic call from his sister, sobbing and screaming for him to bail her out. She was hysterical, acting like I had committed some unforgivable crime against her. She just kept crying about how she couldn't believe I would go to such extremes over something so trivial. When Richard got home that evening, he immediately tried to talk to me about it. He wasn't outright angry, but he was definitely overwhelmed. He said he could have convinced her to leave eventually if I had just waited a little longer. But I wasn't having it. I looked him straight in the eye and told him exactly why I did what I did. His sister had repeatedly ignored my boundaries. She had, time and time again, shown up at my property without asking. And this time, she went as far as demanding that we change our plans for her just because she had a 1-month breakup. I asked him point blank, what kind of grown adult acts like this? Who in their right mind thinks they can just take over someone else's home and then throw a tantrum when they're told to leave? I made it very clear to Richard that I was not a pushover. I had been more than patient with her because I considered her family. I let her get away with her behavior multiple times, despite my frustration. But this was a line crossed, and she needed to learn that her actions have consequences. I told my husband that if his sister was crying about how unfair this was, then maybe, just maybe, this was the wake-up call she very much needed in life. She had treated my kindness like a given, something she could take advantage of whenever she pleased. But now she would finally understand that I was not someone to be disrespected. I told him flat out, it's time she learned her lesson. And I expected him to back me up on this because at the end of the day, she was his sister, but this was my house. And I was done playing nice. And just to make sure there are no more surprises, I've already decided that I'm going to be changing the locks tomorrow. No more access, no more unannounced visits, no more treating my house like her personal vacation resort. My sister-in-law can throw all the tantrums she wants. She can cry about how unfair this is, but I refuse to let it happen again. Update 4 *. Despite all the chaos with my sister-in-law, my husband and I still went ahead with our annual family get-together, exactly as planned, and it was amazing. My dad, grandfather, and cousins all showed up, and we spent the whole weekend reminiscing, laughing, and celebrating my mom's memory. This is what the house was meant for. Family gatherings filled with love and respect, not someone treating it like a free hotel. Richard and I also had a long, heartfelt conversation about everything that had happened. He admitted that at first he was taken aback by how far things escalated, but after thinking it over, he realized I had done the right thing. He saw how his sister had ignored my boundaries over and over again, and he understood why I had finally put my foot down. He even agreed that changing the locks was the best decision. There was no way we were ever dealing with this again. But of course, my sister-in-law wasn't done making a spectacle of herself. A few days after she got out on bail, she ran straight to social media and wrote a long, dramatic post about how I had betrayed her and gotten her arrested over a trivial misunderstanding. She painted herself as this struggling family member just trying to find peace, while I, the cold-hearted villain, had her thrown in jail without mercy. She was clearly hoping to gain sympathy and have people rally behind her. And at first, it seemed like her plan was working. Some of her distant relatives, and even some of our close family friends started commenting in support of her, calling me cruel and heartless for treating family this way. They were acting like I had just kicked out a poor, helpless woman for no reason. However, I wasn't about to let her twist the truth to make herself look like a victim. So, I calmly wrote my own post, with every single detail. I laid out the full story, how I had given her a key out of kindness, how she had ignored the one simple rule I had asked of her, how she had repeatedly shown up without permission, trashed my house, and even tried to demand that I move my plans to accommodate her. And most importantly, I made it crystal clear that I had warned her multiple times before I ever involved the police. That was all it took. The moment people read my side, the tide completely turned. One by one, people who had supported her started backtracking. The comments shifted from sympathy to utter disbelief toward her. Even some of her original supporters started calling her entitled and saying that she was 100% in the wrong. Some even said that I had been too nice for letting her get away with it for so long. Suffice to say, she got absolutely obliterated in the comments. Now, she has gone completely silent. She thought she could spin the narrative in her favor, but all she did was expose herself even more. As for me, I'm completely at peace. My family gathering was a success. My husband is fully on my side. The locks are changed. And now, everyone knows exactly what kind of person she is. Update 5 asterisk. It's been 2 months since my last update, and a lot has happened. As expected, my sister-in-law's case did go to court because I continued pressing charges. She tried to play the victim, but at the end of the day, trespassing is trespassing. Since this was her first offense, she got off with just a petty fine, which honestly was more mercy than she deserved. Since then, she has not dared to speak to me. Not a word. No fake apologies, no attempts at playing nice, just radio silence. And honestly, I prefer it this way. But what's even more interesting is how this whole thing has affected her relationship with Richard. They've always been extremely close, but right now, things are incredibly rocky between them. She fully believes that Richard should divorce me for what I did. She's convinced that I ruined her life, and that he should have never taken my side. She genuinely thinks that she's the victim here, and that he should be cutting me off, not her. But Richard, bless his heart, has stood his ground. He straight up told her that she was the one who crossed the line. She was the one who ignored my boundaries, and she was the one who got herself arrested. He reminded her that I warned her multiple times before I took legal action, and instead of respecting my home, she decided to push her luck. Needless to say, she didn't like hearing the truth. She thinks her brother has betrayed her by not blindly supporting her, and now their relationship is incredibly strained. She's basically angry at him because for the first time in her life, he's not enabling her behavior. At this point, I don't even care. If she's mad that Richard chose to support his wife instead of his entitled, trespassing sister, that's her problem, not mine. I'm just so glad this entire drama is finally over, and I can once again enjoy my beautiful vacation home without ever worrying about unexpected, unwelcome guests showing up at my door. Peace. Pure peace.